The one where Rachel tells is the third episode of the 8th season of Friends. This is directed by Sheldon Epps. And as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And in general, it's a really good episode. We have some really strong moments. And it starts off with Monica and Chandler getting ready to go on their honeymoon. Rachel also tells them that today she will tell the father of the baby. And it's confirmed then that it's Ross. We kind of got that confirmation at the end of the previous episode, but it's nice to have it confirmed at the beginning of this one. And I'll talk about Ross and Rachel in a moment, as that's where most of my thoughts are, but I'll first talk about Monica and Chandler, and then Joey and Phoebe. Monica and Chandler, as we established, are going on their honeymoon, and they managed to get a nice amount of comedy out of it, despite the fact that they're away on their honeymoon, because they're at the airport checking in. The couple in front of them are on their honeymoon and they get bumped up to first class. Unfortunately, Monica and Chandler don't, because they're all fully booked in first class. They try to sneak into the first class lounge. Monica gets very excited about oranges, and there's a very funny but I think very meaningful scene where they then get the best hotel room, and Monica and Chandler, mostly Monica, have had enough. Every step of the way, even though they're both on their honeymoon, the other couple got everything, and the other couple said, we don't care about the stuff, you can have it, we just want to spend time together. And Chandler points out that they need the stuff, which I liked. Admit it, just be honest, it's important to them, and it was good fun. I think it was a nice way to include Monica and Chandler in the episode, and definitely getting a nice amount of comedy out of it. Joey and Phoebe are such a great duo. I think they work so well together, and we don't have enough Joey and Phoebe stories. They want to get into Monica and Chandler's apartment. They haven't got keys, so they phone Treeger and say that there's a gas leak, so he'll come and open the door. And the next thing we hear is banging, because Treeger has this keyring full of keys. By the time he finds the right one, the apartment will have blown up. So instead, they're taking an axe to the door, and the door smashes in, to which Phoebe responds by saying that they could have done that. So a fun part of the episode as well. And then we come to Ross and Rachel, and Rachel goes to visit Ross, and Ross thinks that Rachel's there to talk about the time they slept together and the fact that she wants to rekindle whatever their relationship is, and he talks about the seesaw that is Ross and Rachel. And what I think is really interesting about this is that Ross thought Rachel was going over there to say, let's do it again, or maybe even let's pick up where we left off and start a relationship. And Ross didn't jump at the chance. And that tells me that maybe a tiny part of him was slowly starting to get over Rachel. And I don't think, even if that were the case, I don't think he'd ever fully be over Rachel. But the fact that he wasn't immediately saying, yes, let's get together, we have to be together, we're destined to be together, I think was really telling about where his head is at. And obviously, when he finds out that Rachel is pregnant, he responds in a panic, which I think was very, very believable. He ends up phoning up the president of the condom company or something to try and find out how this possibly could have happened, and the fact that they don't put it on the box in giant letters that they're not 100% effective. So Ross is in full-on panic mode. But then he tells Phoebe and Joey, after he's had time to think about it, and realises that he didn't necessarily respond in a way that was helpful to Rachel. And we have one of my favourite lines that I use more than I should, is when he tells Phoebe that Rachel's pregnant and he's the father, and Phoebe says, that is brand new information, which I absolutely love. And Ross talks with Rachel, and he said that he will support her and he will be there every step of the way, which doesn't surprise me. I don't think that that's surprising with Ross's character, and that they're going to get married because it's the right thing to do, apparently. This is despite the fact that he was married to Carol, and now they're raising a child together, but they're not married. And yeah, maybe that's why he suggested that, because he doesn't get to see his son every day. But it's not as if he doesn't have a good relationship with Ben, even though he and Carol aren't married. It's not as if Ben isn't having a good upbringing, even though his biological father is not married to his mother. So I understand where Ross is coming from, but I feel like he should be able to look at his son and see that his son is being well raised and that he is doing a good job as a father, despite the fact he's not married to Ben's mother. So I think maybe Ross was rushing into that thought a bit too much. And again, I don't think Ross was saying, I'm meant to be with Rachel. This is clearly a sign we're meant to be together. Let's get married. That's a direction they could have taken. They absolutely could have gone down that road, but instead they didn't. I think Ross is still maybe responding out of panic. And maybe he wants to marry Rachel at this point because it's a bit of a do-over because, again, he isn't anymore married to Carol. And maybe he feels guilty about that, even though it's absolutely not his fault. It's not Ross's fault that his wife is a lesbian. So I don't know. Maybe he's feeling guilty, though, about not living with Ben. And this is a chance to rectify that with his new child. I don't know. I'm probably overthinking it, but I just think it's a really interesting response from Ross. And Rachel, of course, is not having this. They're not getting married. And then they go to the sonogram and Rachel gets upset because she can't see the baby on the screen because obviously it's just a fuzzy wave of lines at this point. And Ross is really sweet and really supportive. And honestly, it's really, really beautiful. And it's so lovely to see Ross and Rachel working together like this. And obviously I can't say really anything else about the future of this part of the narrative, but obviously this is going to be something that comes up quite a bit going forward, and we'll talk about that when we get there. I feel like the pacing of this is brilliant, of finding out somebody was pregnant, as we were led to believe, Monica, and then a couple of episodes later establishing that it was Rachel, and then we have the mystery of who's the father, and then we find out who the father is, and I think they managed to spread it out enough without dragging it on for too long, but they didn't give us everything in one episode. They were able to pace it out, and I think they just handled the whole narrative so far really, really beautifully. And needless to say, I think the one where Rachel tells is a really brilliant episode of Friends, and for Ross, I think it's a really interesting character study. Really fascinating to see the emotional journey that he is on in this episode and to look at how he's responding to Rachel and what his kind of immediate plans are and ultimately how he ends up supporting her and has obviously made the right decision in being there. It would be very bizarre if Ross said, well, actually, I don't want to be involved, but also the six of us are going to continue to hang out together. That would be really, really awkward. I don't think that was ever on the table. I don't think that was ever an option. But nevertheless, Ross still made what I think is the right decision. And it's a really lovely episode. I'm looking forward to some episodes going ahead. There are definitely some that I think are brilliant. There's one in particular that I'm looking forward to. But we'll get there when we get there. And for now, I'm pleased to say that the one where Rachel tells is as great as I remembered it. Definitely a really brilliant episode of Friends.